Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat?
Yes, we'll go through a true process for the defensive coordinator spot. We're really excited to go through that over the course of the next few days, and we'll find an excellent candidate.
That is Saints head coach Kellen Moore when he was introduced on Thursday to the New Orleans media. Obviously, a big part of the conversation is building his staff, and he'll have to hire an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. And in the last 24 hours or so, there have been almost a dozen names mentioned as far as coaches coming and going. So, for example, the Saints have granted permission to offensive line coach John Benton and Andrew Janocko and John Benton have already been hired by the Seahawks, and now Rick Dennison has been granted permission to interview with the Seattle Seahawks. The New Orleans Saints are retaining wide receiver coach Keith Williams. We've already seen several Saints assistants headed out to Las Vegas to join the Raiders. Now Marcus Robertson, who's now former Saints defensive backs coach Marcus Robertson, is joining the Raiders staff. So there's just been a lot of this turnover, right? Which is to be expected. We've also seen the Saints hire now an assistant, Brendan Nugent, who had worked with Kellen Moore with the Chargers. They're reuniting. So Nugent actually worked with the Saints offensive line from 2005 through 2021. He's returning to New Orleans. He and Moore coached together with the Chargers in 2023 when Moore was the offensive coordinator. So they're reuniting. So there's always this idea of some familiarity. We've talked about, naturally, a guy like Doug Nussmeier, who it's largely assumed is going to join Kellen Moore in New Orleans. He's been with Kellen Moore ever since 2018 in Dallas. They were together in Dallas from 18 to 22. They spent 23 together with the Chargers, then 24 together in Philly. It's largely assumed that Nussmeier is going to join Kellen Moore in New Orleans in some capacity. If it's offensive coordinator, if it's pass game coordinator, assistant, they'll figure out the roles and the titles and all that stuff whenever. But you're still looking for a defensive coordinator and a full staff that you'll have to fill out. But Kellen Moore talked about the importance of those relationships when building a staff.
There's tremendous value for experience when you've worked with someone, just for continuity's sake. But I think the blessing and wonderful thing that you learn is, as you go through this journey, going to Los Angeles, going to Philly, there's a lot of coaches that if I just stuck in Dallas, I would have never met, would have never got to team up with. And so you understand that as you go through this process, you're going to have an opportunity to meet and team up with coaches that maybe you haven't done it with. And they're going to be really special, and they're going to have a huge impact on us.
I think every coaching tends to be somewhat incestuous. There's a lot of hiring and rehiring and firing and sharing and crossover. That's just sort of the nature of the business. And you're already seeing that now manifest in the staff that Kellen Moore is starting to sort of assemble and put together. I think offensively, what is very important as far as a coordinator or a quarterback's coach is that Kellen Moore has someone around him that he trusts, that he works well with. That's why I think Doug Nussmeier is important for that role. Play number 31. He was asked point blank, Kellen Moore was, if he's going to call plays. Play this one real quick.
And to stay as a play caller as a head coach, or was that kind of up in the air?
Yes, I'd call plays.
So Kellen Moore's going to, there's no ambiguity. For as much as he dodged a lot of questions today when he was asked if he's going to call plays, yep, I call plays. Okay, so he's going to call plays. So the offensive coordinator is more someone who is going to be a resource, someone who you trust, who can be in your ear, who can help you game plan, you can bounce ideas off of. It's important as a resource to Kellen Moore. The other side of it, that's why I think Doug Nussmeier as an offensive coordinator is very important. The other side of it, when you're talking about defensive coordinator, this person has to run a side of the football for you. And You cannot miss on this hire. And Kellen Moore talked about the process of building a staff, but then he was also asked about a timeline for that DC hire.
Certainly, we just want to do it the right way, and we want to go through a process, and we understand that when the opportunity presents itself, it'll be right, and we're very excited about that. Obviously, we know we're into the middle of February, but there's plenty of excellent candidates out there. We're really excited, the ones that we've talked to already and the ones we'll talk to in the future. It'll be a great opportunity.
So he didn't give a timeline, but they're going to go through the process. One of the names that has come up is former LSU defensive coordinator Daronte Jones. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler was the first to report that Daronte Jones could be a candidate and that the New Orleans Saints have requested permission to interview Daronte Jones for the vacant defensive coordinator job. Daronte is currently the secondaries coach and the defensive pass game coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. Very candidly, I don't like this. It's not that I don't like the idea of Daronte Jones on staff. I don't like the pairing of a 36-year-old first-time head coach and a first-time NFL defensive coordinator. I don't like that general lack of experience. There are exceptions to every rule. I think what Dan Campbell just did in Detroit is the most obvious example. You had a first-time head coach who had never been a coordinator, and he hired two young coordinators who had never been coordinators. He hired Ben Johnson on the offensive side of the ball, Aaron Glenn on the defensive side of the ball, and they crushed it. That's also an exception, not the rule. More often than not, what you see is a coach that takes control of one side of the ball. Look at the Saints. Dennis Allen called the defensive plays, but Joe Woods was the defensive coordinator. And actually, they shared roles. Chris Richard was there that first year. But anyway, because you really just needed someone who was an asset on the staff in that role. That's what I would look at offensively. But defensively, you've got to have someone that can run that side of the ball. So when you looked at Dennis Allen, he had to nail the OC hire. They retained Pete Carmichael, whiffed. Went and got Clint Kubiak. We'll never know how it would have gone had they been healthy, but it looked good early, right? But you had to have someone who could maintain that side of the ball. Look at Kellen Moore. When Kellen Moore got hired by Dallas as the offensive coordinator when he was promoted in 2019, the head coach, although Moore called plays, the head coach was an offensive-minded coach who'd been a head coach for 2 decades, who had won a Super Bowl, who'd made 11 playoff appearances, right? Like, it was like you had a really experienced guy there. So I look and I go, all right, this is your first time as a head coach. Whoever you put around you offensively just to make you comfortable, good. And not comfortable meaning like yes men, but that are going to make you at ease in the job and allow you to work freely and fluidly. Defensively, you got to nail it. And I would rather have someone that has defensive coordinator experience in the NFL. That's why someone like Brandon Staley, I think, would be a better option than Daronte because you're eliminating the variable of what it's going to look like. I mean, Daronte Jones could get the job and fall flat on his face. I mean, I think back to Sean Payton's teams. When Sean Payton nailed the defensive coordinator hires, good things happened. When you had Greg Williams, you won a Super Bowl. When you brought Dennis Allen back, you got out of the 7-9 sludge and became a contender again. When you had Steve Spagnuolo, you were the worst defense in history. When you had Rob Ryan, you were atrocious, and you were a 7-9 football team. So I trust Kellen Moore as an offensive-minded guy, is going to build a staff, is going to function offensively in a way that works. But he's got to have someone that he can say, at defense, where he can say, here's the defense, go make us good. And I'd feel much more comfortable if that's someone who's proven he's done it before, because you have a first-time head coach. If Mike McCarthy had gotten this head coaching job, and you're talking about a veteran head coach who's been at 2 different places and got into the playoffs and won a Super Bowl and been to another Super Bowl, and then okay. He went to 1 Super Bowl as a head coach. But I can understand him taking a chance at defensive coordinator. It's not to say that he wouldn't whiff, and it's not important, but I can understand him taking a chance because you have that much experience on staff. This is one of those where I think you've got to go really veteran on the defensive side of the ball. It's got to be someone like Brandon Staley, who's been a head coach, been a defensive coordinator, who's going to bring that amount of respect and credibility and experience into that meeting room. So Kellen Moore didn't give a time frame for filling out his staff, but they got to move quickly because you're getting toward the start of the league year next month. And you're also moving later this month toward combine and then pro days, and you're going toward the draft. So it's coming. Like the off season is in full swing, and you got to get toward building a roster. So you got to have your staff in place. But I really think, as interesting as it would be to see Daronte come back to Louisiana, it's nothing against Daronte. I think he did an okay job in the one season at LSU. He was really hamstrung for half a season, and when Ed got fired, or it was announced he wouldn't come back, they took the handcuffs off. Daronte got super aggressive, and they were pretty good in the last month of the season. Not great, but they're pretty good in the last month of the season. I just don't know that this is the right timing or spot for a first-time defensive coordinator. But we'll see what decision Kellen Moore makes. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.